Namaste. Welcome to Sipping on Stories podcast. I'm your host Sehereen, and this is where we welcome women healers and spiritual leaders from all around the world to come and share their journeys and their experiences. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing lots of love to our podcast episodes. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. Please like and subscribe to this channel so we can continue spreading some love. Thank you. Namaste, Harpreet. Welcome to Sipping on Stories podcast. I am very excited to have you here today. But, today we are of course, diving into various topics and exploring a few things with you, along with what your perception on or perspective is on manifestation. I know we had a brief chat about this when we last connected. So I thought just for our audience's benefit, I tell them that today we will be diving into a topic that is so important, but goes unnoticed. So what happens when you feel stuck, frozen, and disconnected from the flow of life? So I guess Harpreet is a healer who specializes in helping people break free from this freeze mode. And she combines the wisdom of yogic philosophy and science of and your neurosciences and powerful energetic modalities to guide people from numbness to bold, empowered actions. So whether you felt paralyzed by fear, overwhelmed by life's demands, or disconnected from your true self. So this conversation today is for you. And Harpreet, again, I'm so thrilled to have you here. So let's start with a question. First of all, where you're joining us from and what choice of beverage you've got with you today.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here. I live in a beautiful city of Toronto in Canada, and I am drinking a mushroom drink. It's a nighttime here. I do not drink coffee. It's almost 2 years now that I quit caffeine. So this is like a mixture of bunch of mushrooms with some honey. So this is my nighttime drink.
Oh, I love it. I have been kind of hearing about the mushroom drinks quite lately, and it's coming into my awareness, and I think I need to start looking into it as well. So, and of course, get some tips on how you kind of got rid of caffeine, and that's will be one of my questions, just for my benefit. Okay. With that, I know that there's one particular question that's likely on everyone's mind at the moment is, what is this freeze mode that you talk about, and why do so many of us find ourselves stuck in it?
Yes. So the thing with the personal development industry is that a lot of people, or I would say a lot of programs, move around the fight and flight mode. And usually people are more familiar with those.
Yeah.
Like we all understand that flight trauma response, fight trauma response. So freeze is also one of them. And the fourth one is fawn. It's just the personal development industry is mostly focused on the first two because those ones are very obvious ones. Fear, trying to overcome any kind of fear, trying to overcome any kind of addictions. Those are the part of the flight one. And then the stress, the burnout, which is very common in the corporate world. So those ones are usually a result of either fight or flight modes. So that's why we see a lot of programs dealing with those kind of issues. A freeze mode is, I would say, it's a sneaky one. It's a one which you don't see because that's when you actually become numb. So you are not in touch with your emotions. So it's very, very difficult for people who are stuck or in a freeze mode to actually even label their emotion and actually know what's going on. So when someone is afraid, they know they're afraid. So then they know that they're in a fear mode. When someone is in addictions, they kind of know that they're in some sort of addictive behavior. Yeah. So those ones are, I would say, a little easier to recognize in yourself and also then to go out and seek help for that. But with the freeze one, most of the time people don't recognize in themselves at all. Yeah. And the reason I am bringing this medicine out is because I do believe that for most of the healers, the best medicine you can bring is the one which was your most difficult thing, and then you have to get through that. So for me, the freeze was my default nervous system response throughout my life. Like I was a kind of person, if there's a problem, I'm not going to try to fight it. I'm not going to try to run away. I will simply shut down. And I will just not shut down only externally, but shut down internally as well. I won't even acknowledge it to myself that it's a problem.
Mm.
I'll be just like, find a way to not even think about it, and
Mm.
that's it.
You just brush it under the
So
carpet. Yeah.
yeah, right. Like that's when we feel we are stuck. So people who are stuck in the freeze mode, most common way you're gonna know that you're stuck is when you are unable to take action, because
Mm.
that's when it externally manifests, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're like, uh, an easy example would be someone in a not so good relationship, in a
Mm.
romantic relationship. They are not happy, but they are neither trying to break it off and move on,
Mm.
nor they are trying to work on it or make it better. They are simply just there, not even hoping for anything to get better because they're not thinking about it. So they just find ways to not think about it, and they
Mm.
just numb. They just completely numb around it.
Yeah.
And then they keep on telling themselves that I'm stuck here. I'm stuck
Mm.
here.
Mm.
So that's like a very standard, like, that's when a person is stuck in a freeze mode. Like
Yeah.
their body is unable to take action in either direction,
Yeah.
and they're not even trying to get themselves out of it, but
Mm.
they slowly, after a while, they start recognizing that I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
That could happen in careers, happens
Mm.
all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are in okay jobs, they're not bad, but they know they can do better, but they
Mm.
do not do anything about it.
Yeah.
Or they will scroll through LinkedIn, but they won't apply. Or
Mm.
even if they apply, like with some bout of motivation for a couple of days, the
Mm.
moment they will receive their first rejection, they will just numb out, and then
Mm.
that's it.
Mm.
And then they start telling themselves stories like that. Oh, maybe, like, no, the company pays better. Maybe all companies are like that. You just make stories around justifying your behavior,
Yeah.
but that's where the stuckness is.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
freeze mode is definitely different from fear. Fear is a very strong feeling. Like someone
Mm.
who's in fear, they know they're in fear. It's right in their body. If someone has anxiety, they know it right away. They know they're anxious. But
Yeah.
people whose default mode is freeze, they usually don't feel too much anxiety or any kind of fear either, because they're so numb to even feel that.
Mm.
So I was the kind of person who used to think that I'm not afraid of anything because I never felt that fear feeling in my body. Maybe,
Yeah.
yes, if there is a job interview, 5 minutes of nervousness, that's different, but there's no chronic fear, there's no chronic anxiety.
Yeah.
And I was in this confusion that maybe I'm a very courageous or brave person just because I don't feel anything. And it took me a while to realize that what's going on, like how numb
Mm.
my body is, that even if I'm afraid, I don't even feel it. I just My first response is just to numb it and forget about it.
Mm. Yeah. It's,
So that is a reason, because I was able to come on the other side, and that's the reason I'm very, very passionate about like helping people in
yeah.
particular this area.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that like I don't have clients who have other problems. Like, of course, there are people who come with fear or come with anxiety and
Yeah.
other issues as well. But my heart is like really like when someone is stuck, that's I'm like, okay, this is where I can help you. Like really, I can feel it because I
Yeah.
know how you're feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how did you kind of start recognizing this in yourself that you were stuck, and what was your journey like from there to now helping people realize this and helping them get out of this, stuck zone?
Oh, it was a very long one. Unfortunately, there was no one out there to help me. So I grew up in India. I spent first 30 years of my life there. And my entire 20s, I didn't recognize it at all. Probably other people did who were around me, but I
Mm.
personally, myself, did not.
Yeah.
So my first very clear indication was when I lost my father when I was 21.
Mm.
And that was a sudden news. There was a sudden death.
Yeah.
And I could not cope to the point of that I didn't even shed a single tear for about 20 days.
No.
Like during the entire process, entire funeral, everything happened, and I'm just like numb.
Mm.
And people around me were talking about it. They were like, maybe she should cry. Maybe she should have some sort of emotional. And I'm like, I feel fine. I feel okay. Like that's sort of the point I was trying to make. Like, sometimes you don't even realize that you're feeling something because
Mm.
you can numb yourself up to that point.
Yeah.
So But again, in India, people don't talk about these things. So no one says that maybe you should go to therapy, maybe you should try something. You
Yeah.
simply, something happens, you just move on.
Mm.
And the first reaction is just shut down and just like, not talk about it, right?
Mm.
So I never really did anything about it. I recognized at that point, I'm like, oh, something seems a little off about this kind of reaction. But then I simply was 21, like what I'm going to do. So just
Yeah.
kind of simply moved on with my life. And then uh, ton of other things happened, like different work situations, bad relationship situations. My reaction was same every time. I will be just very, what I would think I'm detached, and that's another subtle sign. I would think I'm a detached person, and that's just a personality trait.
Mm.
And I remember once one of my friends commented and she said, "You're very cold." And I
Mm.
was so triggered. And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean by I'm cold? I'm just detached." And I thought it's good to be detached by spiritual terms. And
Yes.
I just flipped it as a positive personality trait, that I'm
Mm.
just detached. Like, why are you calling me cold? But that depends, like some person can look at you and think that you're just a detached person, and someone
Yeah.
can say that no, she's cold, like I don't
Mm.
feel that warmth from her.
Mm.
And I would say that was definitely, that trigger was big enough for me, because that was a very close friend, and I'm like, I don't understand. I had this, like, taken this personality trait, turned it into something positive for myself, for my own justification, that I'm just a naturally detached person. And someone calling me cold was quite a wake up call.
Yeah.
But even then, again, I didn't do anything about it. I just thought about it a lot. I read some books, Googled some, and I'm like, okay, whatever, and moved on.
Yeah.
And then when 2020 happened, I wasn't already moved to Canada by that time. And of course, we all corporate people finally got a chance to work from home, first time in our lives. And that's when actually I started delving into like personal development, start doing reading books around that, start doing some programs around that. And
Mm.
that's when it finally actually realized that, oh, this is actually a nervous system response. It's basically a very common known trauma response, which I had no idea. I just
Mm.
thought I was simply stuck and that's it.
Yeah.
So that is when basically I started doing work around it.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite an interesting kind of story that you mentioned. And you also kind of pointed out that in India, especially because I come from an Indian background as well, and I moved to Australia around, yeah, over 10 years ago now. And I find that even in my family, like when you talk to your parents, they kind of don't want to address the underlying issue. And we are very good at kind of brushing everything under the carpet and be like, let it just be there. So I'm not looking at it, so it's not a problem. And I guess it's very important that we kind of address these emotional responses or feelings and talk about it. So as you said, it's true that, people don't talk about therapy, but it's nothing wrong in getting therapy or getting counseling done. And these things exist to help us. So I think that's a very good point you mentioned, and thank you for sharing your journey, because I feel like there are many of us like that who will be hearing this episode and do feel stuck in that way, and I'm pretty sure there are many of us. So I hope that this, as we go through our discussion today and talk about these things, I hope that someone listening to this finds a ray of hope, and they know that it's nothing wrong in reaching out for help.
Yes. And my most favorite one for the Indian one community is, oh, time will heal it. Oh, I don't think time heals anything. I
Oh,
think all the
classic.
time does is probably you become smart enough to create more coping mechanisms around it.
Mhm.
I think that's the best the time does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have not seen time healing anything. Like I have sometimes clients who are in their 50s, and when we try to do like, the work and go back to their childhoods and all, they are still having those triggers.
Mm.
So time clearly does not heal anything. I think heal is not the right word. Time may make you forget something, or
Mm.
you might find more coping mechanisms, and your brain is smart, right? Like you'll find other ways,
Yeah.
like, around it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think time heals anything.
I agree 100%. And Harpreet, as we talk about kind of blending disciplines in the kind of work you do, so how do you weave like these yogic philosophy, neuroscience, and energetic modalities into your healing process? And if you can maybe share an example of how these approaches kind of come together or work together, so that would be good for our audiences to understand the way you approach in healing a little bit more better.
Yes. So, in our yogic philosophy, we basically say there are multiple bodies inside the body. So, physical body is the one which we see, and then there are subtle bodies, right? Energetic body, mental body, emotional body, intuitive body. We also call them koshas, like panch koshas. People who are familiar with the yogic philosophy, they would have definitely heard this word. So, what happens with any kind of healing is that if you do not hit all the bodies, you're not going to be able to resolve anything from the root level. So, for example, like say if I'm having a headache and I just take a Advil or like any other, painkiller, all it does is that basically it goes and numbs your nerves there and you stop feeling that headache. That's it. Like it's
Yeah.
not resolving anything from the root cause. Like it's not trying to find that why you're having a headache.
Yeah.
So that's why I always notice that, because over the last 4 to 5 years, I have taken up almost 8 certifications at this point, and I absolutely love anything related to healing. Like I have learned a lot of different modalities and all, but my uh, dissatisfaction always came from the point that I realized that not everything works, and also not everything works for everyone. So whenever you are going to someone or some practitioner, always they're always going to say their way is the best, right? That's usually how things are. If you're trying to practice something and have a business around it, of course you're going to say that this is the answer to all of your problems.
Yeah.
But I've noticed, like, not everything works for everyone. Like even just simple things like hypnosis. Like, yeah, hypnosis can beautifully work for some people. For some other people, it won't. Like it'll be really hard for to even like, get them under hypnosis.
Yeah.
In the same way, like modalities like EFT, like emotional freedom technique, it's a hit or a miss, right? Like there's no guarantee of actually knowing that if you do it, it's going to work on you or not. And I felt that, like, after doing a lot of research in that area, I think coming from India, my background with Eastern philosophies and Eastern styles,
Yeah.
I could actually see these Western styles in a more, I would say, holistic way that actually helped me to see them actually like a whole picture. And that's when I realized that the reason some of the modalities don't work or not work all the time is because they are not hitting all the layers of the bodies. So there are some modalities which hit the energetic layer, but they absolutely ignore the mental part of it. So the person energetically, you feel better for a few days, but then your mind kicks in, and then you like, crash, like you go back to your regular that, oh, I'm still feeling that now. So it's very easy to go to some practitioner, even like a basic energy modalities like Reiki and all. I have so many people, like, who go to these kind of practitioners even sometimes on weekly basis, and they don't still move forward in life. They feel better though. They come back from a session and they're like, oh, I do feel better for a couple of days, sometimes for a week, and then the mental patterns start like, working again, and then they're back to where they were started before.
Yeah.
So my dissatisfaction was always this. I'm like, I need to know why some things are working and why other things are not working. And that's when I slowly started figuring out, once I learned the panch kosha, the philosophy, the yogic philosophy of different bodies. That's when I realized that, okay, so in order to have a permanent healing, or like we say, irreversible healing, like the healing which actually clear something from the root level and you won't face that problem again, it actually has to hit all the bodies. If it's not hitting all the bodies, you're not going to receive a permanent effect. A very simple example is working out, going to the gym, because that's mainly your physical body only, right? Another thing I always say is like gym and yoga are not the same thing. Like a lot of people try to put them in the same bucket, and they're like, oh, it's the same thing as a physical exercise. No, yoga is not just a physical exercise, but gymming is. Workout is mainly physical exercise, right? So And most of time, unless until you're doing something unique in a different way, that could be different. But most of the time, the way people work out in gyms is a very physical oriented exercise. It can affect your energetic layer a little bit temporarily, but that's all it can do. So that's why when people start working out, they do feel better. Like it's a chemical feel better, right? Because of
Yeah.
the hormones, the body, the blood flow, and all. You do feel better, but it's not gonna resolve your whole issues of life. Like sometimes with people with clinical depression, if they go to a therapist, the first thing they tell them is that, oh, start working out, start moving your body. But they don't just stop there, because they know that that thing has a limitation. Like that's going to give you some boost, but it's not going to resolve your whole issue. And that's when after that you have to think about how you're going to heal the emotional layer of the body. Then you have to think about the mindset as well, because mind is the king, right? Like mind is the one which is controlling the body. Then you have to find a way to heal their mindset, their beliefs, and then to heal their aura, their energetic body. Only when all these four bodies are actually hit, that's when you receive a permanent kind of irreversible kind of healing. So for me, that's why understanding those yogic philosophies is really, really important. Otherwise, it's very easy to get stuck in some modalities wherein you expect them to work on you, and they sometimes do up to a certain level. After a point, they stop working, and then you feel like, okay, I'm stuck again.
Yeah, I think you beautifully put that message across, and it does make sense to me. And I think with that, I want to take you back to where you said where we don't recognize this numbness. So, kind of how we can recognize this numbness. So what are some of the subtle signs of maybe emotional or energetic numbness that people might overlook in their everyday lives? So because I would love for, audiences to kind of get some actionable insights they can start doing right away, after they've, kind of heard you and heard your advice in this episode. And we always want to do that. So what are some of the signs they can actually look out for?
I would say for freeze, for numbness, the most common one is the detachment, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, so you have to consider the detachment you're feeling. Very common example is there's some people who don't feel homesick at all. Again, I was that person. Like I changed so many homes. I just moved from one city to another. I would never even think about the home I left. Like I just want. And I took it as a personality trait, and I thought it was like, oh, I'm just a detached person. But as a healthy person, okay, it's good to be detached, but that's a spiritual concept. That's a different kind of concept. That doesn't mean that you absolutely don't feel any emotion at all. So if you consider yourself or your friend circle or your family, people consider you as a very detached person, as a negative trait, maybe that's your sign that probably your body's numb, or you are more numb than you think you are. Another sign could be something goes wrong and all you want to do is just watch TV. That's a very common response. Like your boss said something, and a person whose default response is fight or flight, they would take action. Those are always action oriented people. Like if your default is fight, if your boss says something, your brain is continuously going to be like, how should I write this email back? How I'm going to take revenge from this person? Like some sort of action. Like even if it's negative, you will be very action oriented person. You'll be like, I'm going to do something about it, even if it doesn't make any sense at all. But if your first response is like, oh, well, I'm not happy about it, I'm triggered, but let's just go and binge watch something on TV, that's a sign that you're freeze. You're very much in a freeze mode. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just not kind of, again, it's all coming down to that, right? We just want to put a pretty kind of blanket over it and not look at it. So I guess
the lack of action. The lack of action is a very, very strong sign. Yeah.
And the lack of action, or when you talk about people who are action oriented, when they kind of do react to a situation, it can be both negative and positive. Is that right? So there could be positive actions that come out of it as well.
Yeah. Because a person usually, like, if they're not aware of their nervous system response, then of course the action is going to be most probably negative, right? They're just going to get angry. Basically, the fight mode is going to come out. They're just going to feel angry. But for someone who's aware of these responses, even if they get angry, they might take a moment, be like, oh, it seems like my nervous system is activated right now. Let me
Mm.
just maybe do some breath work and then get back to it. So before taking action, making that space in between, recognizing and having that awareness of that I'm
Yeah.
triggered right now. I might be in my nervous system right now could be very fragged. So
Mm.
then you take a moment to kind of, build a gap before taking an action.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree. And how do you help people transition from a state of paralysis or fear into of a bold action? So what does that journey typically look like?
The journey actually starts with mind. Like I mentioned before, in my work, I like to focus on all four bodies,
Hmm.
but my work always starts with the mind. I would say, at least in this context, I won't say for everyone in every healing context, but at least in the context I work in, mind is very, very powerful. And usually mind is the one which drives your body. So
Hmm.
if someone comes to me who are in a very deep, in a freeze mode, very numbed out, if I ask them okay, so from tomorrow morning, get up and start going to gym for an hour, they'll probably do it for a week, depending on how strong of a pep talk I can give them, because the motivational speaking only lasts, for a little bit. But after that, they won't be able to do it. Like they won't be consistent in it.
Yeah.
So I've always noticed, unless and until you hit the mind, they're not going to do anything. The action is not going to come out. And for some people, sometimes the action has to be very small in the beginning. Sometimes when we do the mindset work and then they actually want to take action on the
Hmm.
physical moment, sometimes it has to start with as small as 5 push-ups a day. Like not everyone is going to be like, oh, tomorrow morning I'm going to go to gym for an hour every day now. Like that's just unrealistic results, which usually happen over course of some time and not right away, not after one session.
Hmm.
So usually starts with the mindset work, and then I put them onto some sort of protocol around physical movement,
Yeah.
if they are able and if they can do those things. Some sort of my recommendations around physical movements are around yoga. Like I mentioned before, because I do believe that yoga is superior to gymming. So I'm like, oh, if you're gonna spend some time, why not you do a yogic asana or some sort of practice, which will
Hmm.
basically hit at least three of your bodies. Because when you do a yoga asana, it hit your emotional, mental, energetic, as well as intuitive bodies. Basically hits almost all of them.
Yeah.
So a result from a 15 minutes of sun salutations is way more than a result of 15 minutes of workout in a gym.
Hmm.
So if the 15 minutes is all you have,
Yeah.
then I will highly recommend picking some asana practice, some yogic practice, because it's going to actually hit all your bodies and you're going to start seeing results really fast. So
Got it.
with gym, it's possible you might feel better for a few hours after it.
Hmm.
With asana practice, you'll feel better for a whole day. So
Yeah.
that's a difference. So putting them on some sort of protocol, very limited, small time, not like an hour of yoga. Who as person is numbed out is not going to start doing that much that
Yeah.
quickly, but putting them on a small protocol of maybe 10 sun salutations, you
Yeah.
start from there, and then you do 5 minutes of breath work. Maybe try to do a quick meditation after that, have a small practice, so that we start engaging with all different bodies in different
Yeah.
ways. And once they have come to their mindset is improved enough that they're ready to do deep emotional work, then
Hmm.
we start diving deep into inner child healings or part work, some sort of emotional healing modalities. And then
Yeah.
I also use my energy healing modalities along with that work to support them, to make it easier, because
Hmm.
sometimes inner child sessions can go for really long, right? Because those are the things which people they are their triggers, right? They can get stuck there for a really long time. But
Yeah.
the beauty of doing that with the practitioner is that because I can support them with sending them healing codes and using other healing modalities along with it, so that something which can take very long can actually be very, very fast and short process with the practitioner.
Hmm.
So that's usually I bring in all those modalities together. And I'm not interested at all in giving them motivational talk. For me, if they're only taking action because I'm continuously providing them motivational talks, then there's no point. You can go on YouTube and you can just listen to Tony Robbins. There's no need to sit and work with someone for one-on-one if all you want is motivational, right? I
Yeah.
want them, I want that action to come from inside,
Hmm.
from their intuition, from their intuitive body, and have that enough mental power for them to execute that action.
Mm.
So that takes work. That takes at least few weeks and few months of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the role of the body is so important in that aspect, as you mentioned, because I was going to ask you, like, how does the body play a role in healing from the freeze mode, and why the movement or somatic work is so essential. So I think you've already kind of touched on that, because it all starts from the mind. And I think that when your mind can perceive something and it can get some motivation, so you can start going deeper and deeper afterwards. So it makes sense. But if there's kind of anything else you want to touch upon from from a perspective of what is the role of the body, you can. But I thought from here I'll do a little slight deviation as well, and we kind of touch upon a little on manifestation, because this is something I kind of hear a lot people talking about, and how easily you can manifest things, and people kind of get stuck in that kind of limbo as well, and things don't work out for them. So I would love for you to kind of touch upon that, and of course, if there's anything that you would like to add from what else, what is the role of the body as well, apart from what you've already covered.
Yes.
Hmm.
For the body, to be honest, the triggers are in the body, right? Like they say, the trauma is in the body, the triggers are in the body. So the body plays a very important role in that way. Like you have to, like I have not seen anyone getting better or improving if they do not do some sort of bodily movement. Like your body has to be your friend, like you have to go there. And I've usually noticed, like, I'm sure everyone understands the chakra system, right? Like the seven chakras. Usually, what happens is, like, people whose intentions or awareness stays in the lower three chakras are the
Mm.
ones who are usually pretty grounded. They're the one who are in this reality, and like they're grounded people. They live in the present. They know what's going on here. And then there are people, which are actually most of the spiritual people, whose upper three chakras are usually more activated, and for those people, it's very hard to be grounded
Mm.
because their awareness is usually like synced with higher planes.
Mm.
And that's what they enjoy the most too, because that's usually the definition of spiritual person, right? Like when you enjoy the outwardly experiences, you enjoy more being in an astral realm than in this realm. And
Mm.
we are so connected, then you just want to stay connected there. That's why usually it's very hard for spiritual people to hold down jobs and to actually do well in their career and all, because they just they feel like, oh, I just want to leave everything and go live in an ashram, or I just want to leave everything and go, like, just go away from this world.
Mm.
So I think that's why specifically for spiritual people, I've noticed it's very easy for them to get stuck in freeze mode, because their usually upper chakras are very activated, and they
Mm.
are very good in like doing guided journeys, in meditations. Their imagination is very strong, like they can visualize stuff, and sometimes people have psychic abilities. They can see things, they can hear things. So they're so in those upper world that it gets very hard for them to get rooted here
Mm.
and actually do something consistently to actually create a result out of. It could be a career, it could be a business, it could be even a holding down a romantic relationship and actually raising kids,
Mm.
because all of those things demand for you to be here and present and actually face the everyday realities of life.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it. They just want to be in their guided journeys and in their astral realms. So it's very, very important to be like get connected with your body back.
Mm.
And that's why I feel that in our yogic philosophies, that's why there was so much. Although if you look from a Western lens,
Yeah.
the entire Indian philosophy is all about enlightenment, right? So you will
Mm.
think that if it's all about enlightenment and leaving this world and attaining nirvana and moksha, why you're just sitting there and doing yoga asanas? Like why are you doing these physical exercises, right?
Yeah.
So they are so important, because without them, you won't be able to ground here.
Yeah.
And then if you're not grounded here,
Mm.
yes, your life still could be okay, but you're not gonna hit the success in the physical realm. Like
Mm.
you just won't be able to do it, because you will never be able to consistently do something long enough to actually get a result out of it. Even
Mm.
if it's your career, even if it's like, business or anything, you will just like get bored after a while. You'll probably do 5 social media posts like for a few days, and you're like, oh, this is so boring, and I just
Yeah.
want to go back to my world. So it's really, really important, especially for spiritual people, to get back in the body, get back here, if they want to enjoy the success of this world.
Yeah, makes sense.
And
I think one part of it I want to kind of ask you is that, the kind of physical ailments or the diseases we kind of have in a body and we experience that. So would you say that would be coming as a result of maybe a mind or result of these other three bodies that they kind of, they're punched holes in these bodies and our physical body is experiencing these diseases and these physical ailments. So where do you kind of stand on that in terms of how the physical ailments kind of manifest in our body? Maybe it is because of, the mind, emotions.
On this, my perspective is completely based on Vedic philosophies, and in our Indian philosophy, I do believe that all diseases, all illnesses in the body are a result of your karma. And so when I say karma word, it's like there's not a negative connotation to karma. Like we just consider, like in India, we consider karma just to act. I know the Western view of karma is more towards it's something negative. When something bad happens to someone, we say, oh, is there karma? But when something good happens to someone in Western world, they never say it's karma. But in India, we do. In India, we take karma in a very different way. Even when something good happens, we say, oh, it must be my karma.
Yeah,
but
karma.
When that word got translated to Western, somehow it just becomes all negative now. So here people are interesting, here when they do something good, they want to take all the credit. So then they don't want to say it's karma. And when only something goes bad, then it's karma. So I think it's very, very convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do believe that all diseases are basically because I do believe in reincarnation. So it's basically your the samskaras you bring from your past lives.
Yeah.
So those ones actually got together in your the fifth body, the bliss body. That's a body which actually carries all the those remnants of those past karmas, good and bad both. And then they come back in your physical body, and that's how basically you receive your body too, like your good features too, like how you look, how your eyes are, how your face are, like everything, like the good aspects, bad aspects, everything is your karma. And that's how your physical body gets formed. And then those negative ones gets activated throughout the life through your emotional body. So whatever negative ones you were carrying, they usually gets activated in your third kosha, like they say in Panch Kosha philosophy. So in that emotional part of the body, it gets activated. And I actually also believe that all the childhood triggers and traumas are also kind of pre-written. I know in the Western world, it's very like we do want to blame the parents and the parenting style and all. But I do feel that because I do understand in terms of science, they don't want to go back to the past lives or anything. So as a therapist, if you want to, then of course they're going to say it's a childhood trauma because they don't want to go anything past the human life. But if you look at the bigger picture, my belief is that you were already carrying that seed. And then, of course, you were matched to that kind of family dynamics where that trauma has to happen because that's what you have to experience. And then, of course, things go that way. You are matched with those kind of families and parents where those things happen to you. And then by the age of 8 to 12, like those things develop in you now. And now you have traumas, like, from which you can think back to your childhood, but it's not just that. It has to be the past lives and other things, right? So all the diseases also, I think you carry the seed of them. And then at certain points, those seeds gets activated, and then it goes back to your physical body.
Yeah, I think it's very important what you touched upon, Harpreet. And it's just not, it doesn't just end in your childhood, because that's not just when you were born. That's not where it actually has begun. So I think where I wanted to go from that is also wanted to kind of highlight that it's much more than that. As you said, we go beyond just our childhood and there's much more to it. And this is the whole platform, we encourage people to kind of look into things that they would have never imagined about it. Or even if it makes them uncomfortable or it's challenging, you kind of have to open up your perspective and look into things and never kind of, just shut the door on it. But thank you really for touching on that. And I'm grateful you did. Because a lot of people talk about, the kind of emphasis, they put a lot of emphasis on childhood trauma. I understand that, but when you said we have to go beyond that, and that's absolutely right. So thank you for touching on that.
Yeah.
All right. And I know that I have been personally waiting for this topic, right? I want you to kind of touch upon manifestation and what your perspective is on manifestation. Because there are a lot of videos and reels, information exists out there in today's, social media world that we are in. And people are scrolling through the Instagram reels and as guilty, but I sometimes do as well. I see a lot of people talk about manifestation and how you can do this. So I would love to hear from you.
Oh, I went into that rabbit hole deep, deep, deep for a few years. I've read lots of books on manifestation. Of course, The Secret was a huge success. For me, that was the entryway into the manifestation world. And I do acknowledge that actually most of the people finally get into spiritual community through manifestation world only. Like that's very common. That I just started reading those kind of books, and then slowly they start learning about mindset work and other things. Like that's usually that's a trend I've heard from so many people. So I have a bone to pick with the manifestation community. And that is about, I think they are completely ignoring the law of karma.
Yeah.
So that's my main thing. One, like I do believe, because law of attraction communities are mainly created in Western world, and like we touched upon before, there is a core difference between how we look at life in Western world and Eastern world. In Western world, it's all about entitlement and individuality. And I think the law of attraction community is a lot about entitlement. When they say things like, I deserve this. Like you must have seen those, like, money manifestation affirmations when you say, I deserve money, I deserve this.
Money comes to me very easily.
And that's the kind of thing you never hear in India, though, because we don't, it's just, there's a cultural difference. Like in India, no one suddenly wakes up one day and say like, oh, I deserve money. Like we just don't think that way, because we are culturally very, very attuned with law of karma. Incarnation was always a part of the world. I do realize that in Western world also most of people do have started believing in reincarnation, but that's a very new phenomena. For long time ago, like, no one used to believe in that, right? But in the Indian world, we just grew up like that. Like we just consider reincarnation to be a very normal thing. And if you consider reincarnation normal thing, then of course then law of karma becomes a part of it. Because if I'm coming from my past life, then of course I'm carrying something from there, right? That's why we are even talking about it. Like we are not starting as a clean slate. So we do understand law of karma at a very deep level. And that is why I do realize that, like, probably Indian people are actually, I see less and less Indian people in any of the manifestation communities. I think it's mainly Westerners who are very, like, who love this entitled based, theories of like, I deserve this, the universe should give me this, like, those kind of philosophies. I think it's just very hard for Indian people to even wrap their head around it, because we grew up always saying that, well, if it's in your karma, you will get it, otherwise you won't. So there's,
I think people also kind of mix having a positive attitude or positive mindset around money versus the karma and what the destiny is. Like it's good to have a positive mindset, and you wake up every day and you're not feeling like, I don't deserve this and I'm not worth it. It's okay to have a positive attitude towards life. Like, hey, you have the amazing life and you deserve much more. Have faith and keep moving forwards. But then at the end of the day, if you're going to have that financial blessing or not, but it depends on your karmas. As you said, it should be written in your destiny, or it's not going to happen. But you need to be okay with it happening or not happening. So I guess that there's a confusion between that as well. If you, I'm sure
very well said. Very well said. That's a really good point. Yes, I do believe that there's one benefit, huge benefit of law of attraction community, is that they empower people. They take away that helplessness and that powerlessness, and they actually give you something to hope for and to look for. The only problem is when it goes too far, and I've seen it going far very commonly in spiritual world, and like even with some of my friends, wherein then they absolutely refuse to do anything. They just want to sit on their couch, and they just believe that the universe is gonna somehow magically keep on providing for them. It could be anything. It could be a new job, it could be like money, it could be a relationship, but they absolutely refuse to do any work around it. So my take on manifestation is, I do believe in it. I do believe that law of attraction is true, but I believe that that's not the only law. So now there are other laws like law of karma, so you have to take that in consideration as well. But I don't use law of karma as something negative either. Like I do not like it because there's a negative aspect of our culture as well, wherein sometimes people of our older generation, they get very into destiny and fate conversations, wherein they feel that, oh, if it's not in your fate, you're never gonna get it. So I do believe that that is an extreme as well. I do believe that there is some sort of free will available, if not fully whole, but there is some there. So but the negative aspect of our community is, or you can say our culture, is that especially older generations, they're always about fate, and for them fate is something 100% fixed. That's why the astrology business is huge there, because all you want to do is like go to astrologer and ask your fate from them, and if they say it's going to happen, you believe, and if they say it's never going to happen, you're like, okay, this is never going to happen. But I do believe that, as most of the things in life, the answer is maybe something in the middle. Like there is an element of fate and there is an element of free will as well. So there is a karma, there is a free will. They kind of dance together, and you have to learn to do that dance with it. So you cannot be like fully that, that, oh my God, my life is 100% in my control, because no one can say that. Not even like a big law of attraction guru is going to ever say that, because no, things not always go by the way you want them to go, right? But that's also not true that, oh, if I just like put my hands up in the air and be like, well, it's all fate, then why would I even want to do anything? If all is fate and destiny, then why would I want to wake up, even go to work? Like if it's in my fate to have money, I'll have it, otherwise I won't. I think that's also a very powerless kind of attitude. So you need to have like a middle, wherein like you believe there is some sort of like, a theme of my life. It's going somewhere, but I do have a free will up to some extent, not 100%. I cannot control 100% of my life, but up to some extent, I can control it, or I can make things happen. And after knowing that, you have to understand the skills aspect of manifestation. So a very basic example is, say you want to manifest a swimming pool. I know it's a weird thing. You do your visualizations and your scripting and everything, and suddenly one day the swimming pool is in front of you, right? So the problem is that you never actually learned how to swim. As a child, you never learned it, right? As an adult, you never learned it. So now you have a swimming pool. What are you going to do with it? You'll probably sit on the side, dip your toes in it, right? Because you actually don't have a skill to use it. So I think that's what happened to most of the people. I consider manifestation as something external. I think it's like you can manipulate your reality, and law of attraction can bring you opportunities and ideas. They can come to you, but how you gonna use them, and how will you be able to even execute? Like if you don't even know how to swim, like if you don't even know how to interview, yes, you might land a good interview offer, but if you don't have interview skills, you're not going to get through. And even if by some chance you got through it, you're going to get fired from that job later on, because you never had the skills to begin with. So it's the same thing. Like if I want to make like apps, or have like like amazing body build, like like a amazing body, I have to go to gym. I cannot sit on my couch and just visualize. You can visualize all you want. What will happen with all that visualization is, it is possible that someone might offer to train you. It's possible that a new gym will open up in your area. It is possible that your company will open a new program where they will be like, oh, we're going to cover your gym now. Those things are manifestations. You can manifestation ideas and opportunities around you, but you still have to drag yourself to the gym and lift those weights, because if you don't lift those weights, you're not going to get that body.
100%.
So
100%
people, I
agree.
think, miss the skills aspect of it. So the same thing in business. Like I can say all day and have like a nice vision board and everything about that, all the things I want in my business. If you're not going to have the skills of the sales and marketing and the copywriting and everything involving that, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But it's possible that due to my manifestation efforts, I keep on getting opportunities. Like people keep on inviting me to things, and I have opportunities around me, but I don't know what to do with them, because I was hoping the universe will deliver that thing in a silver platter, but that's not how it works. It just delivers you opportunities, and it might deliver you ideas, but if you don't have the skills to execute on them, it's not going to work.
Yeah, you need to identify them, as well as opportunities.
That's the biggest problem with money manifestation, though, because people hope that money is going to fall from the sky. No, it's going to come in a form of an opportunity, and then you have to grab that opportunity, and then you have to put work in it.
Yeah,
basically that's what a manifestation is.
Oh my God, thank you for saying it. Like, thank you for sharing this. I think everyone's being kind of misled with what manifestation is, and I think you beautifully explained it, Harpreet. Thank you so much. And I think I would have not been able to do such a good job of actually explaining that, but I completely resonate with you, and this is what I believe in as well. So thank you for just kind of putting my thoughts into words as well. So thank you for doing that. And with that, I think I would love for you to kind of talk about some of the transformative stories that you can share, that like a transformational success story from someone you've worked with. So maybe illustrating how your methods have changed their life. And this is something I kind of encourage my guests to talk about, real life examples, because I find them the most impactful, most powerful.
Oh yeah, I have plenty, but I'll only share one. So I had a client who is an artist, and they wanted to monetize their products, like the art they create. The problem was they were doing a different kind of business programs. Like they did a copywriting program. For 1 month, they were very motivated to do copywriting, and they were just writing all kind of copy and feeling very excited about it. The problem with them was the moment the program ends and there's no mentor who's continuously giving the motivational, that pep talk anymore, they just crash. And then they think, okay, maybe by joining another program, let me learn marketing now. Let me probably learn TikTok. Let me probably learn how to make videos or reels. So they did a lot of different programs, did a lot of things on for free also from YouTube. A lot of people teach a lot of kind of skills in the YouTube. That's what I call like a skills, you keep on acquiring different skills, thinking that a skill is going to solve an emotional or a mental problem. And that's what a lot of people actually do that too. Like whenever they feel they're stuck and they can't move forward somewhere, even in career, they feel like, oh, if I hire someone to help me write a resume, then I might find a dream job.
Right.
And or like if I go and learn about interviewing skills on YouTube, I might find a dream job. Those things help. But I would say if you feel stuck, then you should first try to actually, even either yourself. I'm all about self-healing and coaching and self-journaling and doing all those things. But if you can't do that, work with someone. But first resolve the emotional and mental issues, especially if you have already learned 2 or 3 skills and you're not able to see the results from them. Because the problem with them was they were stuck actually in a freeze mode. With the constant motivation of different programs or listening to other people's YouTubes, they get that motivation for a few days. So they will do the task. They will set up the email, go to Convertlet, go to MailChimp and set up the emails and all, probably send 2 emails. And after that, the motivation drops off, right? And then they're back there where they started. So when we started working with them, I told them, it's not a skills issue. You already have all the skills. It's the issue that your brain does not think that you're going to succeed in this. So if you don't think you're going to succeed in this, why would you even try, right? So we had to do a lot of work around their emotional triggers, their freeze mode, their anxiety around wants to put themselves out there, what the family and friends gonna say when they're gonna see that, what everyone will say if I don't succeed, if I tell everyone I have this product and I'm selling it, but I don't succeed, then everyone's gonna think I'm a failing. Like, all these like which we say like a usual issues, but we all know about them, but we don't think we have them. We always think that other people have those issues. But you, that's a common, like if you're learning a lot of skills, but those things you're not seeing the results, then it's a very clear indication that the problem is not the skill, the problem is something else. And once that mental and emotional issue is resolved, then all those skills finally start generating results. Then you have this intuitive hit of let me do this right now. That's when the like I said, that's when the manifestation works too, because then when you start getting ideas, you can execute them too. So your internal and external actually learns to do that dance of finally creating things. So within few months, they have everything, all the skills they have learned prior to meeting me, they were finally able to execute them without any external motivation. Like you don't need constant pep talks from someone to actually do it when you actually generally want to do something. So these are the kind of results which people get. So I'm not teaching the technical part, I'm not teaching the skill part. I'm sure there are plenty of stuff on YouTube which people can find for free, and that's what I call the YouTube University. You can go to YouTube University and learn all that, but there's some things which need the deep emotional work, and you just have to do the work once, and you get the reward for the rest of your life. Like once you work on say healing your trigger around being seen, then the rest of the life, you're gonna feel comfortable being seen with your friends, with your romantic partners, with your family. You can go and give a speech in front of 100 people. That one, healing that one wound has gonna have exponential effect on the rest of your life. So I feel like it's 100% worth the investment. It's like a better investment than trying to learn skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because it's not only one part of your life that's going to be helpful. As you said, it's going to kind of unfold into various aspects of your life. So I think it is quite a rewarding kind of resource, I would say, or kind of help that they're getting. So look, thank you for sharing that. And I guess it has been quite enlightening this episode, for myself, also Harpreet. So thank you so much. And there are so many things that I feel like I've just felt like I'm so connected with everything that you've said. And I wish that it is the same case with our listeners and audiences listening to this episode today. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and sharing your work. It is indeed, quite divine work that you're doing. So I wish you all the best in your journey. And unfortunately, today is all the time we have today to have you on this episode. So with that, if you have any kind of a message per se that you want to give out to our listeners, go for it.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It was a blast. I just love having these conversations. The only message I would like to give is that it's just my line of work. I notice a lot of people don't recognize that they have a problem. Like I mentioned, most of the personal development industry is around overcoming fears, overcoming anxiety and those things. And they're very vocal about it. So my only request is for people who feel that they're stuck to actually recognize that this is also a similar problem along the similar lines. It doesn't necessarily have to reach to the burnout level or you might not even feel anything, but that is actually also something which can be resolved. And to come on the other side and be able to actually feel emotions in your body and actually feel like normal is very, very rewarding. So I will request everyone who are feeling in that way to actually reach out to someone and seek help. Just anyone, go to a therapist, go get counseling. But do notice that this is something which not a lot of people talk about, but this can be resolved, and life can be very, very rewarding on the other side of it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Harpreet. With that, again, I wish you all the best in your journey. And thank you so much for coming on Sipping on Stories podcast and sharing your very, very valuable wisdom that you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sari. Thank you.
All right.